a jar here which actually is a shellac mixture, and I hand mix all my own shellac. Classical guitars have been built, or actually have been finished traditionally for many, many years with a shellac finish, which is also referred to as a French polish. A lac beetle leaves a material in a tree which actually is harvested from the tree and is smashed into flakes. And that's where the name shellac comes from, actually from the lac beetle. So I take these shellac flakes that I purchase and I mix them in a jar with a pure grain alcohol. It takes about 24 hours for the shellac flakes to dissolve in the alcohol. That is then filtered, put into another jar. And from that, I can thin it down to my desired specification. And it is actually hand rubbed into the wood. The body of the guitar, the back and sides, I actually seal first with epoxy. I'll do 3 very thin seal coats of epoxy. And what that does is it actually fills the pores of the rosewood. And I sand all the epoxy back off except for what fills the tiny pore. Once I have a smooth surface like that, I actually start and cover the entire guitar with shellac. This goes into a little pad, which is called a munica, and in both a straight and circular motion, I apply the shellac. Now you can see at this point, I don't have any binding or purfling on the guitar yet. And the binding and the purfling run around the perimeter of the guitar and finish off the edge. This is actually ebony. This is an ebony binding. And then the purfling rings are the rings, veneer rings, that sit inside of that. And I use a number of different woods. I'll use a Canary Island pine. I use maple. I use padauk, mesquite. A number of different woods, but I try and pick woods for their color and use naturally colored woods, not dyed woods. The end of the guitar, as you can see, the butt end, this is called an end graft. This is a piece of ebony. Behind this, these 2 side pieces and this graft are actually glued over what's called a tail block that sits inside the guitar. So this tail block glues to the back, the top, and the sides as they come around the butt end of the guitar. And this is also something that I have adapted to my guitars as far as how I build these. A thin piece of wood like this could fracture and split all the way through. So what I have done with my tail blocks is I've actually taken Honduras mahogany and have sanded it down thin and then cross-laminated it so that this piece is virtually indestructible. And I find that makes it much better, much stronger. It takes me about 15 to 16 hours to actually finish a guitar.
Wow. And how many coats of shellac do you usually put on?
Well, you know, a coat is kind of a deceiving term to use because it's not really a coat. You put it on such a thin amount that actually each coat burns or melts into the previous coat. But I would say I go over it maybe between 25 and 30 times. Wow. But there are very microscopic thin layers. But it's because of that the finish actually dries hard. The reason that French polish is still done today, as labor intensive as it is it's the least inhibitive as far as sound goes. A lot of people like lacquer or will use other finishes that are resistant to alcohol, water, many things that the French polish is actually not. However, these other finishes actually inhibit the sound somewhat.
Because it kind of seals up the wood, right? It kind of, yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
And when they're scratched, it becomes harder to repair. That's one of the beauties of the French polish or shellac guitar, is that it's easily repaired.
And you do that you hand rub it, because I've seen them finish guitars in the bigger factories and it's sprayed on.
Yeah, it is sprayed in factories sometimes, but no, I do the traditional method, which is all hand rubbed. Now, much of the work is done by hand, but with the aid of some of the power tools that I have here in the shop. One of the first processes in the building of the guitar is the milling of the neck stock. This is Honduras mahogany, and there is a scarf joint in this neck that runs through here. That scarf joint is done on this jig on the table saw. As you can see, the blade comes up through here. The piece of wood is milled in this fashion at this angle, and I have about a 15-degree head to neck angle. One of the other jigs that I use here on the table saw is this one. This I will use for actually a number of different things. I use it with a smaller blade, but nevertheless, this is a very valuable tool. The fretboards are actually slotted in this jig. I have a fret template that I use that sits here on this table and slides through. I cut...
So you cut the slots for all the frets?
For all the frets.
So it's like you notch it?
Yes, notch it. This is the lining which actually goes in the back of the guitar, and this is how the sides of the guitar are glued to the back. This lining is actually cut here on that same small blade. And as you can see, it's basically curve cuts made so that the lining becomes flexible. And this is done with a series of linings that I'll do at one time, but it's a matter of making a cut, pulling it back, moving it over, and I'll do maybe 6 or 8 linings at one time.
And you use that as a piece on the inside of the guitar to attach the back to the sides?
Correct.
Right on.
Yes. This lining is unique to the classical guitar market in that it has a cove in the top of it. And this cove cut is actually done on a wood shaper. I have a router bit that goes into the shaper. It's fed through by this power feed, and that's how I cut the cove in the linings.
How many do you use in one guitar? How many of those go into it?
Well, a piece would be longer than this. Maybe 2 pieces that are roughly 30 inches.
2 pieces?
Would go into one guitar. People can get a hold of me through my website, David, www.hellerguitars.com. It has pricing, all the contact information. You can call me on the phone. You can email me, thomas@hellerguitars.com. And
They can meet you at the local gas station like I did. We were talking cars.
Local gas station. We'll talk guitars, surfboards, motorcycles.
And cars, yeah.
Cars, everything.
Yeah, awesome.